In the atrium, come on in.
Too bad they can't follow this piano up and down. Have a seat, Richard.
Actually, they could. I mean, it's got wheels, but it would be, you know, a little risky. So I'd like to do something first a little different, okay? I'm going to improvise something for you, but I need your help. If you can give me, let's start, just give me one note, a random note. B, okay, very good, B. And then I need a couple more. D, okay. So we have a B and a D, and you were singing F sharp. How about F sharp too? And how about one more note? It was good. So B, D, F sharp. One more note. You can sharp or flat too, you know. Anybody else? Okay, I like that. Okay. Now, what do you want me to do with that tune? Do you want it to be in a certain style, in a certain character? It's up to you. So
you do your thing.
You want me to, okay, I'll just see what happens. So here's our tune, just so I don't forget. And it's B. All right, hello. So we're gonna do this improvisation on random notes. Well, they're not random. We got nice. Okay. So. With your notes. Thank you very much. Thanks. That, you know, classical music used to be based on improvisation. They would do this all the time. I started doing it recently because I think it's fun. It can be funny even. I played somewhere and we came up with this idea. Someone said, take Mary Had a Little Lamb and play it in the style of Stravinsky. That was weird. So now, as promised, I'm going to mix gospel and classical. So I'm going to play, to start with, Softly and Tenderly in a Southern gospel style. I'm going to do a little improvisation there as well. So. I love the old hymns, and it's like classical music. It's maybe these are pieces from many years ago, but they're not really old. They're always new. I'm going to play something now from the 1700s. This is by a French composer named Gossec, Gossec. Gossec lived about the time of Mozart. They knew each other. They were friendly. Gossec was, I mentioned he was French, and he wrote a number of operas, especially. This piece is from an opera called Recital. And it's played frequently, it's done mostly on the violin. That's how you'll hear it. So that's connected to that violin theme we were talking about. I love violin music on the one hand, but on the other hand, I'm a little bit too lazy to learn how to play it. It's the violin, it's too difficult. So playing them for piano, these pieces. The Gossec Gavotte, it has a wonderful sense of humor, this piece, because it has what I call a musical hiccup. Or another way to think of it is, when you're driving and you hit a speed bump, especially when you're not expecting it. That's what this, oh, hey, how are you, Tamisha? Thank you for having me here. So, it sounds like that because you're going to hear the hiccup, okay? You heard it? It's like you're, da, 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 just all of a sudden there's this blip. And for that reason, the Looney Tunes liked this. I think they used this for the Looney Tunes. But finally, this was written in the 1780s. It's right before the French Revolution. So that whole world of Versailles with the wigs and the, curly, architecture, gardening, that's that time period here. And it's not going to last very long after this piece. After the French Revolution, everything changed. I'm going to play Beethoven later. Beethoven's music's after the French Revolution, and it's a whole different thing. So here's the Gossec Gavotte. Here's something from later. This is by Dvorak, who is a Czech composer, lived in the late 19th century. And this is a vocal piece originally that's called Songs My Mother Taught Me. But you hear it mostly, I think, on violin. Fritz Kreisler played it a lot, arranged it. So if I were to sing it, which I don't sing, the text is very beautiful. It says, I remember songs my mother taught me, and now I teach them to my children. Lovely text. So Dvorak was Czech, and his music is all based off of Czech folk music. And that folk music, from Eastern Europe and Central Europe, it's mostly gypsy music. So there's this feeling of that in this piece. This is from a set called the Gypsy Songs. So it has a rhythm that's a little bit lilting like gypsy music. It's a little bit improvisatory or something. So anyway, hello, how are you?
Hello.
So this is songs my mother taught me by Dvorak. It's just to be clear, it's not actually songs that my mother taught me, just the title of the song. So because I played it, someone told me, your mother taught you some beautiful songs. I said, well, that's the name of the piece, so Dvorak. I'll do one Southern gospel piece before something very long, 25-minute piece, which will be the 25-minute thing is going to be sort of the main course of today, the meat and potatoes of the day. So, but first, this is an old-time Southern gospel song called "I Have Heard of a Land on the Faraway Strand." So, let's see what happens. I'll do a little improv too. So. So now I'm going to do the long piece. This is by Beethoven. And this is actually, I'm going to do the first movement of his violin concerto in D major. So violin concerto, what on earth, piano. Here's the thing, I'll tell you the story of the piece and also why there's a piano version of it. So Beethoven, he wrote it in 1806. And the first performance, well, it didn't go so well. The piece, it's, the first movement alone I mentioned is quite long. It's not your typical Beethoven shaking his fist sort of thing. It's much more reflective music. It's, what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't know, it's understated maybe is a good word. So I think the audience at the time, they didn't quite warm up to it. The violinist Franz Clement, who played it, noticed this, and he improvised a fiddle tune. He turned his violin upside down and played a lively fiddle dance to wake people up just after the first movement. Now, I don't think you're going to fall asleep because there's more to the story here. Beethoven actually wrote this piece after coming to terms with the fact he was losing his hearing. So it's a piece of philosophical acceptance. I mean, can you imagine anyone losing their hearing, but especially a musician like Beethoven? And so I think in this piece, he's coming to terms with that. And so think of ways in your life that, we all have things like that, grief or experiences with ourselves, with others, that we reach a place where we accept it. And it's painful in a way, but it's, But anyway, a couple more thoughts about, before I forget, Beethoven noticed that the first performance, it didn't go so well. So with the urging of his friend Clementi, another composer, he arranged it for piano, and that's what I'm going to do. This is kind of my arrangement too, because it's for orchestra too, solo and orchestra. So I'm playing the orchestra parts as well, as much as possible. But Beethoven made this piano version of the violin concerto. It's not done too much, but there are some classical pianists have played it. And it really fits in perfectly with this thing I'm doing, this theme of the violin. To have the violin concerto of Beethoven, but for piano. Two things about Beethoven. One is what Leonard Bernstein said about him. Bernstein said that Beethoven did not write great tunes or melodies. Interesting. If you isolate them. So this piece, the main idea is just a scale. That's pretty simple. It's almost primitive. Think of the most famous Beethoven symphony probably. Is that really a tune? It's just a rhythm. But Bernstein says what Beethoven does with those ideas, he turns them into magic. That's the key. And Beethoven, it didn't come so easy to him. Maybe Mozart, it came all to him immediately, but Beethoven, he had to work at every note and struggle and suffer, really. But the results are glorious. The total picture is glorious. One more thing about Beethoven, I had a teacher say it like this. He said, Beethoven is Tolstoy in music. What did he mean? Well, he said that when you read Tolstoy, it's not only beautiful writing, but it's also writing that has a moral component. It makes you think about what it really means to be human. Not all music and writing and painting can do that. And Beethoven does that. Beethoven makes us, that deepest part of what it is to be human. He does reach that place. Tolstoy, in one of his essays, he asked the question, he said, why do we even bother with the arts? There's so much real suffering in the world. Why even bother? And that's a valid point. Look at all the terrible things going on in the world today. But he says that if there's a musical performance or something, and one person walks away with a little more compassion in their hearts, it's done its job. And that's a very powerful thing. And that, I think Beethoven, he really captures that somehow for me. So anyway, it's a long piece. I said this is Beethoven's, the first movement of his violin concerto, but the piano version. So with this 25 minutes, you could probably drive to Greensboro and park. So, but it's a beautiful piece. So I hope you like it. Thanks. In the time that took to play, the sun came out. So, you know, that's just the first movement, but it can't be shorter. That's the thing. It's so long, but it's a journey that Beethoven takes you. Beethoven's music is just, I think it's just incredible. So let me do this just to change things up a little bit. I'm going to do a little improvisation on two old hymns, Rock of Ages and Nearer My God to Thee. I was reading about that hymn because it just came to my mind recently. And the famous story about that hymn was that it was done, they played it on the Titanic as it was sinking. But the thing is that I looked in the hymnal and it says Lowell Mason wrote it in the 1850s. Lowell Mason was American. I was wondering, did they really play that version on the Titanic? And I looked into it further because there's a couple movies, one in the 50s, a more recent one, about the Titanic, and they used that famous, you know, but that's not the melody that was probably used, because British Methodists used a different melody composed by Sir Andrew Sullivan, right? Arthur Gilbert and Sullivan. This was Arthur. He wrote a different melody, which is more like. I don't recall, but it's a completely different melody, and it's just very interesting, I thought. So, but at any rate, I'm going to do a Southern gospel version of them both. I was saying I lived in Texas. I can't help but add some of that Southern. I can't help it. So, might not be the way you'd sing it on a Sunday service, but that's just with some improv to it. So, Rock of Ages and Nearer My God put together. So. like doing it's like a medley. You know, I put the two of them together. So let's see. Do you have something exactly at 4? It's almost 4. I don't want to keep you past. In other words, would it be all right if I went over a few minutes? Okay, I have a couple. Maybe just do a couple more pieces. Do you want? Well, do you want more mellow stuff? Could I do one more sort of soft piece, or do you want something a little more?
Soft.
You want? Okay, all right. That's good. Some people like the real bombastic stuff. I actually like the soft stuff. The Beethoven, funny enough, is a mixture of both. It has very strong moments, but it has a lot of moments that are quite. But anyway, this is a violin piece, a classical piece called Meditation from Thais. It's a famous piece. And it's from Massenet's opera, Thais. And the story of the opera, there's a young lady, it takes place in ancient Roman times. And there's a young woman who worships Venus, the Greco-Roman gods and goddesses, all right. And there's an early Christian monk who he's given the job to convert her. And in the process, they fall in love. So first of all, it's because it's an opera. Operas are all about love. But there's a lot of different thoughts about this opera and this music, the music that I'm about to play, that it could be a very religious themed opera. Some people see it that way. Some people see it as an opera about love and that's it. I mean, romantic love. Anyway, it's a beautiful piece, whatever's the answer. The Meditation from Thais is not sung. It's played on violin as an interlude, and it became so popular that violinists would play it, as a solo piece. So I'm playing the piano. There's a piano version of it. And there was a lady once, I played it somewhere, and she came up to me and said, clearly, it's superior on the violin. And I said, well, I can't argue with you, but I don't play the violin. So here it is, on the piano. gonna do just a last thing, a 1-minute upbeat gospel piece to close. Do you want to hear? I could do Joshua Fit, the Battle of Jericho. It's an old spiritual, or He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. Any?
Whole world in
The whole. Okay, let's do that. All right. So. Well, thank you so much for coming, and it's been a real joy. Always a joy to be here. And thanks to Tamisha for scheduling this, setting this up. I'd love to do it again. I think you have the next thing. So I will head out with you all. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.